The Haunting of Lake Shawnee, Echoes of the Past. The first time Jacob saw Lake Shawnee Amusement Park, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rusted Ferris wheel. It stood like a skeletal specter against the dimming sky, its corroded metal creaking in the wind. The abandoned park had been closed for decades, but the stories surrounding it never faded. Jacob, a paranormal investigator with a small but growing YouTube channel, had come to document the legends of the park, the tragedies, the disappearances, and the eerie happenings that had plagued the land for centuries. Local folklore spoke of an ancient curse, stemming from the brutal deaths of Native Americans who once inhabited the area. Later, in the 1920s, a young girl met her demise on the park's swing set when a truck backed into her at full speed. Her death was only one of several that turned the once thriving amusement park into a ghostly shell of its former self. As Jacob and his two-person crew, his girlfriend Melissa and his cameraman Derek, set up their equipment, the air grew unnaturally cold. The rustling leaves whispered secrets in the wind, and an odd, metallic scent lingered in the air. "Did you hear that?" Melissa whispered, clutching her jacket. A faint giggle, like that of a small child, echoed from the direction of the old swings. The chains swayed slightly, though there was no wind strong enough to move them. Jacob exchanged glances with Derek, who raised the camera. "We're rolling," Derek murmured, stepping closer to the swings. The creaking intensified, followed by a sudden clang, as if something had slammed into the metal frame. Melissa gasped and took a step back, her breath visible in the frigid air. Jacob, heart pounding, walked toward the swings. "Is anyone here?" he called out, his voice steady despite the growing unease. Silence. Then, from the depths of the trees, a figure emerged. A girl in a tattered white dress, her hair hanging in damp matted strands. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. She stood motionless, watching them. Melissa stifled a scream. "We need to go." Jacob lifted his flashlight, the beam flickering as if struggling against an unseen force. The girl's mouth slowly stretched into an unnatural grin, revealing blackened gums and jagged teeth. Then she lunged. History of Lake Shawnee Amusement Park. Lake Shawnee Amusement Park, located in Princeton, West Virginia, has a long and tragic history that dates back centuries. Before it became an amusement park, the land was home to a Native American settlement. In the late 1700s, the Clay family, European settlers, moved into the area and built a homestead. This led to violent conflicts with the local Shawnee tribe, culminating in the brutal massacre of several Clay children and the retaliatory execution of Native warriors. Many believe this bloodshed cursed the land, setting the stage for the tragedies that would follow. In the 1920s, entrepreneur Conley Snidow developed the land into an amusement park, complete with a Ferris wheel, swings, and a swimming pond. However, the park soon gained a dark reputation due to a series of tragic accidents. One of the most infamous incidents involved a young girl who was killed on the swings when a truck accidentally backed into her. Several other deaths, including drownings in the pond and a boy who was found lifeless in the park's swimming area, further added to the site's haunted legacy. After multiple fatal incidents, the park closed in 1966 and was left abandoned for decades. Paranormal investigators and visitors have reported eerie phenomena, including ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and the sensation of being watched. The swings have been seen moving on their own, and the ghost of the young girl in the dress is one of the most frequently spotted entities. The land's bloody past, combined with these supernatural occurrences, has cemented Lake Shawnee as one of the most haunted locations in America. "No way out!" Jacob barely had time to react before the girl's icy fingers grazed his arm. A jolt of searing cold shot through his body, his limbs locking up as a deafening whisper filled his ears. "Leave. Now." Derek yanked Jacob backward just as the figure let out an ear-piercing shriek. The flashlight flickered violently, casting erratic shadows across the trees. The girl's form distorted, her limbs twisting unnaturally as she let out another wail. Melissa was already running toward their van, her breath ragged. "We have to get out of here," she screamed. Jacob stumbled but managed to regain his footing, his heart slamming against his ribs. Derek turned the camera toward the girl, just as she vanished into the mist, leaving only the eerie creak of the swings behind. They sprinted toward the van, But as soon as they reached it, the engine refused to turn over. Melissa's hands shook as she twisted the key frantically. The air thickened, pressing against them like an invisible force. "Come on! Come on!" Jacob urged, looking over his shoulder. The darkness around them seemed alive, shifting, closing in. Then a voice, chilling and childlike, whispered from the back seat. "You can't leave." Melissa screamed. Derek spun around, the camera's night vision casting an eerie glow inside the vehicle. The girl was there, her face inches from Jacob's. Then, everything went black. When Jacob regained consciousness, he was lying on the damp ground, his body aching. The van was gone. Melissa and Derek were nowhere in sight. The silence was deafening, save for the soft creak of the swings swaying in the wind. He pushed himself up, panic seizing his chest. "Melissa? Derek?" A whisper slithered through the trees. "You belong to us now." Jacob turned sharply, his breath catching in his throat. The girl was standing just a few feet away, her head tilting at an unnatural angle. But she wasn't alone. Shadowy figures surrounded her, their hollow eyes locked onto him. Jacob backed away, his mind racing. He reached for his phone, but the screen was shattered, unresponsive. His heart pounded as he realized there was no way out. The last thing he heard before the darkness swallowed him whole was the sound of laughter, distant and echoing, as if the spirits of Lake Shawnee had claimed another's souls.